Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Bitcoin Not Crypto live stream. I guess maybe it shouldn't be called that anymore. The channel's renamed to just my Bitcoin name, Bitcoin Forest Hodl or Forest Hodl, depending on how you pronounce that. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care. All right. So every single week, Monday, I do this live stream, 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It's sort of a Q&A place where people can come and ask questions they might have about what's happening in the week of Bitcoin or about self-custody, running a node, Bitcoin treasury companies. Those are sort of my main expertise, and I think probably why a lot of you are fans of the channel or viewers of the channel. And yeah, so this is just an opportunity for you to ask questions to me, which I will be happy to answer. So ask those in the chat. There's already a few people here. Nav's in the chat already. Welcome, Nav. Hello. And before we get going, I like to before we get going, I like to throw a couple coins in the wishing well, which is this rewards program that Bitcoin Well has, and you can win some free sats by scanning the QR code with your Lightning wallet. So not the QR code in the corner, but the QR code that's about to pop up in the middle of the screen. If you're the first person to scan it with a QR or with a Lightning wallet, you will win some Satoshis. So let's do this. You can win up to, I think somebody won 21,000 sats last week. This one's only for 210. First person to scan that's going to win some sats. And we'll get into it again here. For some reason, I have to hit refresh on this. I don't know why. They got rid of the closing, the X on that with their new update. They'll have to fix that eventually. Redeem 500 points, everybody. We'll do another one. So if you have any questions, comment them in the comment section. We'll just get kind of like to start slow, do a couple of these for the early comers to the show, address my topic of the day, which is just something I come up with last minute every single week. I try to come up with it way ahead of time. Can't think of anything, and then it's the first thing that comes into my mind on a Monday morning. So now's the time to build, learn, and stack. This is sort of the motto of a bear market, right? The bear market, anybody that's left over is somebody who has been building, learning, and stacking Bitcoin this entire time. So nothing really changes except the focus becomes more on that because there's no more focus on price, right? Now, I don't know if we're in a bear market or a bull market or what. My thesis last year was we haven't seen a blow off top, so I don't suspect we'll have a massive correction to the downside. A correction 50% from all-time highs down is a pretty big correction. So, my thesis could be could be you know wrong, I would say, but it's also just a bear market is a very hard thing to define. If it's just a correction of a certain size and then it corrects back up, is the bear market, like if it just happens, within a week, right? Say Bitcoin's 125, a week later it's 160, and then it corrects back up to 90 or 100 or to all-time highs again within the same week, right? I'm not saying this is happening, but if that was to happen, is that a bear market? If it goes down 80% but then corrects back up, is that a bear market? Not really, right? It's not just about the correction, the size of the percentage of the correction. It's also about the duration, and it's really about how we individually define it. Now, there's people will say, well, this is the definition, but then you ask the other person, they're certain that this is the definition. So, it's really dependent. Yeah, and somebody's going to say, well, no, this is the absolute definition, but you ask somebody else and they'll disagree with that. So there isn't really a set definitive answer for that. So just to put it sort of very non-scientific and just to kind of put some realm of an idea on this, I would just say, it's a massive correction like we've had and a long duration, say a year of sideways and down action. until we start to come back in sort of a meaningful trend reversal to the upside. That's what I would say a bear market is. Now, those aren't exact time frames, those aren't exact percentage down. It's maybe a little bit more vibes within there, some rough time frames, some rough price action, things like that, but nothing definitive. So it's hard for me to say that we're in a bear market. Um, Now, nothing I say should be, financial advice or people should copy what I do or anything like that. And the coaching I do is always about, self custody and, I might share my opinions and things, but, it's about learning about Bitcoin really. So it's not financial advice. None of what I do is financial advice. So what I talk about is what I do. And so, me personally, I'm still waiting to see what we're in. I'm still waiting to see if this is a correction or not, or if this is a dead cat bounce that some people refuse to even use the term, to see if this is a sideways and down action for a while. I just think that um, usually, I mean, it takes time sometimes too, but after a big correction, there ends up being sort of narratives that come out that justify why the price moved in the way that it did. And I haven't seen any narratives that make sense. There was an exchange in South Korea that accidentally sent a bunch of Bitcoin to people. There's a new Fed chairman getting elected who has been historically hawkish, and there's a couple other things. There's Core 30, there's BIP 110. I don't think these things are really like what people are actually trading, right? I don't think these are yeah, and the 4-year cycle, this kind of stuff too, right? So the narratives are mild and unconvincing, and to me, that usually lends itself to being sort of this momentary blip. So that's kind of what I'm expecting, but I could be proven wrong there. It doesn't really matter to me. I'm long Bitcoin no matter what. And then basically, the only thing that changes for me is, do I try to save up some fiat, and do sort of the barbell approach to finance, which is have sort of your long-term position and your short-term position with two different goals. Your long-term position can handle any amount of volatility, um, but have an expected a large upside gain over a long period of time. Your short-term position is the volatility buffer and has no volatility, but isn't going to provide any value for you in the long term. The easiest, simplest portfolio with a barbell is in the barbell strategy is Bitcoin cash. I think that's we've talked about it a lot on Maple Bitcoin, and the thing there is your barbell or my barbell can get quite offside sometimes. I've been historically extremely long Bitcoin, extremely short cash. So do I allow a little bit of cash to build up, or do I buy the dip? Um, yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I don't have any cash right now to buy the dip. So part of it is, when do I execute a few things, sell a few things, maybe borrow, character-based loan, whatever, to acquire the cash to then buy the dip? That's the question I think probably a few people are asking themselves at this point. And I don't have an answer for you, but I think for myself, I'm okay with not buying it on the way down, because of my current position of not having extra cash to do that, and I'm okay waiting until I feel like we've stabilized and are going back up. It's not going to be the most efficient way. It's just it is for myself because of my current financial situation. It's going to be much different for everybody else for sure. Um, so that's the stack part of the title. Build. I think there's no excuse now, for the vast majority of people. If they have an idea, it's pretty easy to turn that idea into something. There's text to video creation, there's text to image creation, there's obviously there's been a way to create text to text for a long time. Um, And there's even the idea. So I've been working on what I hope to be an open source book. Um, Funny enough, the idea of it, and I'm going to release it soon in its very incomplete form, intentionally. But the idea is based off of the Communist Manifesto, which it was. I'm not talking about the ideology in it, but the idea of the Communist Manifesto was it was a very simplistic, easy to pass around to basically barely literate working class people during a certain time, and they could hop on board of this idea. So the idea is basically the Bitcoin Manifesto or the Satoshi Standard or something along these lines. Is I have some working titles, but the concept of being able to transfer a message of what you need to know about Bitcoin to become a buyer, what you need to know become about Bitcoin to be a business that accepts Bitcoin, and to have that as a massive onboarding effort completely free to print, uh, completely cheap to buy as a printed pamphlet, and something you can give to people nonstop, and developed in an open source manner. So books are not typically built this way, but it's sort of an idea that I had where I publish a completely unfinished book, and anyone can push. Basically, it's going to be a README on GitHub or like a Markdown, and anybody can publish or fork it and add whatever they want to it, and I can either merge that into the book or not. Um, I'll have merge access, but anybody can fork it and make it their own in whatever way. So even that, right? A book, somebody can create a book now very easily. And what I'm talking about is in the build section, we have really good AI assistance. So this book, there's a bit of a rule set to the creation of it, and that's that none of the words will actually be created by AI. But I've already been working on this book, and basically I have my document and an AI model. I'll use Claude, and I'll write something, put it into AI, say, is this, double check this for me that everything that I'm saying is accurate. I'm using the exact terminology that should be used in an explanatory way. Using it basically as an assistant, and then I'll say, what else could I add to this? What else do you think I could add? And then it'll spit out some stuff, and then I'll take one of those as a bullet point to begin to write on. So I'm using it as basically a research assistant and as an editing assistant. Um, so you can write a book without being an author. You can make movies without being a filmmaker. You can build software without being a coder. There's a lot of software being built right now. So this is the time, right? You can build software that if you've been seeing that something within Bitcoin, right? So for me, the orange pilling, it's a question I get all the time. How do I talk to people? How do I orange pill people? Blah blah blah. To me, that's a massive gap, right? You give somebody this book, they're not going to read it. It doesn't get to Bitcoin till half the way through. I think it's an amazing book, but the vast majority of people you give this to are not going to finish it. You give somebody this book, which is the peer-to-peer digital cash, electronic cash system. This is the Bitcoin white paper. It's too abstract for some people. The vast majority of people are just going to just kind of, it's short, it's comprehensive, but it's a little bit technical. It to me, it's amazing, but to I think a lot of people, it's not written in sort of the human readable way for the masses. Um, I think the best example of and basically what made me stop writing the manifesto style pamphlet book was that Natalie Brunell made Bitcoin is for Everybody, or yeah, I believe that's the title. Incredible book. I read that book. It's exactly what I want to make, except that it's more of a novel. It's again larger, and I want to just have these targeted sections that you could, depending on who you are, you could literally read a section of this book that I write, and have the information that you need. So that's what I'm working on. And again, that's just a gap in Bitcoin that I see. So if you see a gap in Bitcoin, if you say, well, Aqua Wallet is great, but they don't have human readable LN URLs to have a Lightning address. They only have Liquid, and then they swap to Lightning using bolts. Well, they're an open source wallet. You can start beginning to work on that. See if you can add Lightning configurability within there. There's all sorts of gaps in Bitcoin, and this is when we build to make it better. And then, of course, learning is the other aspect of the title here. And we all need to learn self-custody. We all need to learn what a node is, if we can run a node in our current capacity, if it's important to us for privacy and sovereignty. We need to learn about non-KYC. We need to learn about digital privacy in general, and Bitcoin privacy more specific on top of that. And probably we don't need to look at every single news article under a Bitcoin lens like many daily Bitcoin shows do. We need to actually learn the foundation of Bitcoin, and with that, understand the importance of self-custody. So there's a lot of people that still haven't done that, right? How secure is your self-custody solution? Is it only a seed phrase? You got major vulnerabilities there. Is it seed phrase, passphrase, but you haven't backed it up enough? Are you ready for a multi-sig? Do you see the benefit of a multi-sig? Can you create a multi-sig yourself? Do you need to do it with a multi-party? Do you need help walking through it? Do you need to learn more, right? You can watch tutorials, depending on where you are. You could watch a tutorial on how to do something in the Bitcoin sphere, and you'll get about 10% of it, and you'll go and act on that. Then you could rewatch it and learn 20%, and then you act on that, right? It takes a long time because you have to actually experience it. You have to have a greater knowledge before more knowledge is unlocked for you. So I think there's a lot of people, myself included, that are on an endless, a lifetime learning journey, right? We're never dropping out of school here, and not the school that develops factory workers, but the school of life where we follow our interests and we follow what provides us value in the world, and where we can create more value from what we've learned. So that's all with Bitcoin. And of course, I've made a learning community. All of this, everything I say is always a plug to this right here. I'm just kidding. But this is my school community. If you want to scan this, you can do so with your phone. There's also a link in the description. You can join for 7 days for free. You can also book me for an hour one-on-one session and get lifetime access. It's the only way to get lifetime access, actually. And there's a lot of great people on there. There's about 30 plus people now on there, all really cool, great Bitcoiners learning as well, different abilities, different knowledge sets. And I actually have 2 courses on there. One that's an 8-part course on Bitcoin basics and beyond. It will get you, it'll get you ahead of 99% of other people in knowledge with Bitcoin. And I'm actively developing and publishing the digital privacy Bitcoin best practices course as well. There's only 1 episode on there, but there'll be more. This week, I hope to record some as well. All right, so let's get to some chat. This has been, I really do think that regardless of what the price does, now is the time to build, learn, and stack. Stacking can be active, it can be passive, it can be DCA, it can be a plan to stack. Plans do not always go to, according to plan, right? I think a lot of people did not see us going back to these levels because they planned on something different. What's that saying? Man makes plans and God laughs, right? And that's the idea there is you can plan as much as you want, but when you get kicked in the face, your plan might disappear. So plan if you want, but have something as a fallback. And I have a dollar cost average. I have my purchasing plan is always a hybrid strategy. I have a consistent dollar cost average no matter what. And then I have, as income comes in, I opportunistically buy when I believe is a good time. It's always a good time to buy Bitcoin. It's ridiculous to not own it. But there are better times than not. That's for sure. Nav says the bull market's back. What do you guys think? Comment in there. Do you think the bull market's back? I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced either way. I'm sort of fence sitting on the bull market, bear market right now. I think it's possible that we are not in a bear market. Um, yeah, we'll see. Hash rate is still the leading indicator. Hash rate fell a lot before price dropped. Yeah, there was hash rate is always just estimated off of the amount of time that it takes to mine a block. So the amount of time for blocks to happen. So actually, maybe I should bring up mempool to. Okay, so we've had the difficulty adjustment. So it looks like to me, I'm just going to bring this up actually. We can take a look at mempool.space. So this is the mining here. And you can kind of see, okay, let's see, actually take a look at here. So we've seen hash rate go down with price. Nav says that it went down first, potentially. I mean, again, this is just estimated. This hash rate is always just estimated on how long it ends up taking to mine a block. So hash rate is not something that we have an absolute perfect measurement on at all. It could be part of it could be luck, and I think part of this as well could be um, shutting off to protect the grid during that massive storm in the States and things like that. So basically, there was this period of time for basically around a 2 week period here, February 6th to from January 22nd to February 6th, where the difficulty was quite a bit higher than the hash rate, considering the hash rate had gone down so much. So this led to blocks taking around 11 and a half minutes, it was roughly. And now we can see this spike. If we go to the 3 month thing here, we can see that the difficulty adjusted downwards and the hash rate is going back up. So I kind of think that hash rate follows price for the most part, but I don't think it's a perfect correlation. Um, I think there can be outside or like out of market dynamics like the storm that hit America, right? There's a lot of centralized hash rate in America right now. And there's also these are market participants, and if they find a better market for their resources, they'd be willing to move there as well, but sometimes not because there's going to be a delay in profits. So I think that there's some miners that are moving towards providing electricity and uh, data space. I guess warehousing space for GPUs and TPUs and stuff for AI. So that would kind of periodically kind of go offline and provide that value to AI instead, which would take hash rate off the market. So I think this is actually a really promising development that we've just recently had, right? The hash rate has, or the difficulty adjustment has adjusted downwards and more hash rate has come on. To me, this just simply says there is this period of time where because of the price dislocation from the current hash difficulty, that it became unprofitable for miners to mine, certain miners, right? And with this difficulty adjustment down, those miners can turn back on, right? It's just simple profits and losses. And now they can turn back on. And this is the difficulty adjustment in all of its glory that provides stable hash rate for the network. Pretty amazing when you really think about it. Are you still waiting for the trend change on price? Saw your tweet. Sounds like a fiat mindset. I get cash and buy no matter the price. Yeah. So I'm still waiting, partially because I don't have extra cash. Partially because, yeah, it's to me, um, probably to get extra cash might be taking a loan to do so. So I would rather be on the upswing than the downswing for that. Considering the fact that most people leave their Bitcoin on in exchanges and exchanges don't show proof of reserves, what is stopping them from selling more Bitcoin off chain than they actually own on chain? The only thing stopping them is basically regulations based on where they're at, where they're located, the law. Essentially, that if they're a large corporate entity, private or public, but specifically public, and they do any funny business like this, and it gets discovered, their stock is going to collapse. Their value is going to collapse. So there's risk to them. That would be part of it. Is there's risk for them to do so. There's also reward potentially by not having to allocate, by having more profits in. They could take that money and do something else with it. They could buy Bitcoin they basically if they're doing some sort of paper Bitcoin and not actually having the full reserve of it, it's because they think they can profit from doing so. So by and the only way to profit from doing so is to use that cash that they're getting and to not buy Bitcoin for somebody else, but to buy something for themselves, and they become basically a trading firm. This is essentially what FTX did by funneling out the Bitcoin on exchange on their exchange to their trading firm. So you have to think this is quite it's actually a fairly elaborate ruse and pretty difficult to pull off in a regulated market. This is why you shouldn't use dodgy third party like offshore exchanges that have really good fees and only allow certain types of payment methods and things like this, because those are the most likely to do something like this because they're the most able to do something like this. It's possible it's happening elsewhere. I think there is some paper Bitcoin as far as exchanges go, but there's really not much you can do about it as an individual except take self custody and to not participate in exchanges that you think are doing that or think that have the possibility of doing that. That's really all you can do. A lot of things in the world are uh, beyond the ability to change from your own individual actions. All you can do is there's certain things you can do that are within your own control, and those are the things you can't those are the things you should do, which of course is learn self-custody and then take self-custody. There is a use case of holding your Bitcoin on an exchange, and it's because you don't know proper self-custody yet. So the first mistake in Bitcoin is leaving your Bitcoin on exchange. The second mistake in Bitcoin is taking self-custody before you're ready to take self-custody. That's why I largely teach people about self-custody on this channel and in my coaching sessions and on my school. What do you think about BIP 110? I made a video explaining BIP 110 a little bit, going through a website, BIP110.org. That was my last video released from last week. I'm in support of BIP 110. I do think that I still have a little bit of reservations about how quick it seems to be going, how there's sort of this 55% threshold. I do think that it would be better if there was a sort of a minor signaling that was higher than 55. I do think that would be less rash. And I also think that the activation, no matter what, is also sort of a. I understand the reasoning behind the people advocating for it, the people that developed it, for the sort of fast pacedness of the release of it and activation of it. But that's the thing that still gives me hesitancy around it. The other thing too is if this really becomes sort of a cat and mouse game on the base layer, on the consensus layer of, okay, this worked to fix these things, but now these spammers have found this other exploit. So let's close that gap. We need another soft fork to do that. I don't think that ends up being super productive, because um, anytime we decide to change things on the consensus layer, we're basically adding and removing code and changing code, maybe should be the way to put it, which introduces the chance of vulnerability, right? Bitcoin ultimately is code. So I think the obviously I think this should be the natural stance for every Bitcoiner, is the less we change Bitcoin, the better. That doesn't mean we don't change Bitcoin, but it should be we should start at that stance, or at least that's my belief. And that's what I do is I start at that stance. We should change Bitcoin the least, right? And we should change Bitcoin where it's easy to change at the policy level. So unfortunately, this all started off with a change to the policy level, which I did not agree with, which was core default changing the default of data carrier size to basically become unlimited, which allows contiguous data to be placed into the op-return, all for the sake of efficiency of mining operations and not having out of band transactions, which I don't know how much of the problem that really was anyway. It seems like there's more inefficiencies in mining beyond that anyway. Um, Seems like a weird hill to die on. The people that really believe in core 30s changing of op return being a good thing doesn't really make that much sense to me. So I also think another rashness of the BIP is the temporary nature of it. Um, that's basically admitting or saying that we need to think of something better than this, that this is only just sort of a placeholder. Whether that's true or not, whether that ends, this ends up being the final code. Actually, the BIP 110 was merged into the BIP repository, which basically means that it went through enough thorough checks to see that that the code is good. Um, so that deems it less risky than some people might think it is, with sort of the other rash things that I've talked about. So these things should all be talked about. These things should be discussed. These things should be understood, I think, by anybody running BIP 110. But currently, I'm signaling for BIP 110 with my version of knots that I'm running, and I think there is a high chance of um, I think there's a high chance of it going through. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's possible. What's up, Naughty Vlogs? Nice to see you in the chat. Yep, run knots and BIP 110. Lots of support. Lots of quick support and comments like that on the episode I did about BIP 110. Actually, there's a lot of people running it. Hey there, when will you bring back Sats Arcade? I think probably I don't see that necessarily happening. Um we had some exploits on there, some problems, and we've kind of since been working on some other projects that we find more exciting at this point. So I don't know. I don't see it coming back personally, but maybe it will. Since we don't know if this is the bottom, my plan is to double my DCA amount between 60 and 75K range. And if we see a drop to low 60s or high 50s, I would happily sell my stocks and convert to IBET. Cool. Yeah, I think that's a solid plan. I hope it works well for you. And of course, in the long run, it will. In the short term, there might be some missed opportunities of in the 40s, or who knows what happens. But um, you know, I would do that too if I still had stocks. I'd be actively swapping them, definitely. A 4-year cycle plays out. October is the bottom. I'll be doing my normal DCA, but sitting on cash for when October comes. Interesting. Okay, so Orange Focus Media is a believer in the 4-year cycle. So October. So I think when was the all-time high? So that was October 10th. Well, October 10th was when it drew down because of Binance is always a little bit in the story of what's going on here. If you guys notice that, I don't know. But I think all-time high must have been before that. I don't know the exact date. Are you planning on the book being a beginner-friendly book, or is it more advanced and hard to understand? It's going to be absolutely beginner. It's supposed to be for the masses. I swear, if people self-custody their BTC, the price would be higher. So much paper games being played with BlackRock derivatives, etc. Yeah, and there's known paper Bitcoin with futures contracts and derivatives. There's also this interesting thing that IBIT can do, where they can settle the difference in their Bitcoin that they hold for IBIT in cash for a certain duration of time, which can offset and sort of um, distort what the actual market is based on ETFs buying and selling and having the proper amount of spot for the assets under management. So you're kind of allowing BlackRock to play that game however they think they could. Um, but yeah, that's always a good idea, in my opinion, to take self custody. Again, once you have the knowledge to do so, once you've learned how to do it properly, once you feel very safe and secure with it, and actually way more confident with it than you do with having it in a custodial situation. And I do think that, there would be a massive signal to the market, right? We can see um, exchange wallets are basically fairly well known, right? Chain analysis, a lot of it is snake oil, some of it works. And I think the parts that do work is the fact that exchange wallets are pretty obvious with their activity. So if a lot of people started moving their Bitcoin off of these custodial platforms, I mean, you see that chart every bull market where people are like, "Oh, the amounts on exchanges are dropping to like crazy lows and blah blah blah." And it's like, yeah, but it doesn't really mean anything. It's not that much for self custody to move over um, to a custodial to sell, right? It's one transaction away from being on there to sell. So I don't think it means anything like in the short term, but it would be sort of a broader, larger signal that that less Bitcoin is available. Maybe I'm contradicting myself there. It does have some weight, regardless. How silly would it be to buy $7,500 worth of MSTR in my Roth IRA? I legit only hold indexes in there right now. I mean, I hold a bunch of MSTR. I'm still up on my position only because I've been aggressively selling covered calls since the 450 mark when it was priced at 450. Um, and I bought pre-split. I bought a large portion, and I bought way higher than it's at now too, part of my position. But yeah, I don't know. That's going to be up to you, Hayden. I'm not going to give you advice on that one. MSTR is a volatile beast with its own market sentiment, own conditions around it, own securities risks compared to Bitcoin's small risk set in relation. Um, and I had higher hopes for it. I think that it got I think it's been unfairly beaten up, which means that there's potential returns there. But personally, I've sort of learned my lesson with MSTR and will be positioning much less to it in relation. I'm not adding to my MSTR position, that's for sure. I'm adding to my Bitcoin position. After giving much thought, I have come to the conclusion that 50% of stack should be self-custody Bitcoin and rest IBET. This helps diversity risk. Yeah, I mean, 50% in IBET is high in my opinion, but it really depends on your situation. I don't know you always, MK, so I can't say specifically to you or anything, but I think the diversity sort of, there's a diversify sort of thesis when it comes from TradFi. I think that should be completely changed to not different assets, but diversify your custodial arrangements. So have a little bit in custodial, a little bit in a hot wallet, again, to be able to spend if that's what you're into, and in different UTXO sizes in proper cold storage, self custody. I think 50% is high, but depends on how much you have in registered accounts, and if you can't take that out, then you're going to have to hold something, and at least it's Bitcoin exposure in that sense. Mix MSTR with STRC depending on your conviction. STRC to me is a short-term yield instrument, or for somebody who's retiring or retired. I see no value personally in myself holding STRC again, unless I was specifically needing cash as something to fall back on. Or the only time I actually have bought STRC, I bought it soon after it IPO'd and wrote it up to I wrote it up about $7 per share. And that's another opportunity. There's still arbitrage opportunity with that because it's still too correlated with Bitcoin and MSTR. So there's still sort of this arbitrage play, which will get less and less so, in my opinion, over time, because the more arbitrage, the more people that see that opportunity, the more arbitrage will happen, and then that's all buying pressure, which pushes it up to the $100 mark. I agree that half stack should be ready to be moved at any time. I use strike, then half self custody. I agree that half stack should be ready to be moved at any time. Moved at any time. Not sure. Hesitating to take a loan, quite difficult to know if it's a good idea or not. Yep, it's always hard to know. It's always hard to know. My rule personally with loans is to do less than 10% of your stack if it's a secured loan with an asset, less than 10%, and to if there's an LTV on that, it's a margin loan, to over collateralize. Right, my loan is way less than 10% of my stack, the loan that I have with Ledin, and I started with a 30% LTV. Massive drawdown. I think I took that loan out at like 104,000. Not ideal, but I kind of needed the money, kind of thing. We all thought Bitcoin was going up, or a lot of us did. And so then I took that out, and 30%. So now I think it was at, I don't know. I checked it at one point because I was like, well, I haven't gotten an email from Ledin, so they're not sending me an email about margin. Like I'm seeing a lot of posts on Twitter about people closing their loans or getting emails. I'm starting to get worried about this thing. Why haven't I heard about it? And I check, and it was 56% LTV. So I was like, oh, okay, I'm chill. Yo, 88 Sats Radio in the house. What's up, man? Good to see you. And Plastic. Hello, Forest. Happy Monday. Work safe Bitcoin. BIP 110 is censorship. That's hilarious. It is absolutely not censorship. BIP 110 is a consensus change. If there's agreement to it, it's a restriction of the rule set, and Bitcoin is always a set of rules on a network that we all participate and voluntarily agree to. Does censorship is a very eh, misunderstood, right? Again, we can get into semantics of um, into definitions, but what is censorship? If you think it's censorship, what is censorship? I mean, Bitcoin by its own nature is censorship. I can't send specific things over Bitcoin purposefully, right? There's a set of rules that we all agree to, and within there, we can do whatever we want with those sets of rules. Um, yeah, dude, I got bags for days, dude, nonstop. I got an 8-month-old daughter. I'm gonna have bags for a long time. If you mean censoring non-monetary data to keep the blockchain pure, yeah, maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's intention. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want to just say that as it is in that sense, that's the reason for it, right? It restricts. I don't think censoring is the right term here. I think it restricts data in certain forms, and those forms have been exploited to move information and data that can be translated into other things. And there's no and it provides a different value for that data than the Bitcoin that is connected to it in whatever way it is. And because it provides different value to it, there's actually these markets within a market. So there's the Bitcoin market to trade sats back and forth, and people say, well, the fees will drive things out, and that's sort of the fee market that Bitcoin is in there and competing for. But then there's an entirely different market within Bitcoin, and it's for things like ordinals, runes, and basically like these inscriptions and NFTs and stuff. And so that's an entire new market that has a premium to it because people are saying that it's more valuable than it is, and people are agreeing and buying it and selling it, and they're willing to pay more because there's more value ascribed to that specific set of data, um, which outcompetes financial transactions potentially. So I mean, there's the idea there as well that fees will drive out spam, and it's really just not true. I mean, fees are just one aspect of regulating what kind of transactions is, but it's not the be all end all. It's not the only thing we can do to ensure more more financial transactions and less data transactions. And of course, censoring the non-monetary data to avoid the potential flood of CSAM to the network. Yeah, why wouldn't you run BIP 110? I think the only reason too is because you don't understand it, or the other reason too is you don't believe that it's going to be effective, which is a fair argument if you can come up with more effective ways to deal with this potential problem. Yeah, I mean, people also say this isn't a problem. I disagree with that. And I think the other reason would be that, um, yeah, basically you just haven't researched it enough. You haven't, you think that it's too risky essentially to do a soft fork. The other reason maybe is that you don't believe that it's going to work, that like it's not going to get activated, which is a defeatist mindset as well. So I wouldn't be that way. I reached 99.99% Bitcoin allocation, and I sleep like a baby, self-custody plus Bitcoin full node and join market and lightning node. Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, join market's a great system to be able to coin join a little bit. Pretty awesome. Let's see. It's looking like the Dutch government is going to implement a yearly tax on unrealized gains on investments. Any practical advice on how to protect yourself against such a thing? Get as far away as you possibly can from the Dutch government. That is absolutely insane. That is insane. Um, yeah, I would. Yeah, again, just get the hell out of there. That is unrealized capital gains is like the dumbest thing in the world. I don't have any. I don't have any advice beyond that because I'm not a tax professional and I'm definitely not a Dutch tax professional. So I would look into I would look into that. And you're saying it's looking like the Dutch government. I've heard this for like a year now. I know there's some people, some Bitcoiners that live in the Netherlands who uh, I think famously there was one who said, "Oh, I sold all my Bitcoin and bought sort of a ETF or something like that." Um, Part of that might be because he wants to be more tax compliant, or I don't know. There was a lot of speculation on why somebody might do that. If it's 100% going to happen, then not 100%. If it's very, very likely that's going to happen, I would really look for something else. I think that is a death blow. I think that's a death blow to the Dutch government if they do something like that. Game theory begins to play out where money goes where it's best treated, and money will not be treated well within the Dutch financial system if there's going to be a yearly unrealized gains on investments. Just as this tax happened in California as well, huge amounts of value and wealth flooded out of that state because of it. Some people are going to stay, and those people are going to be robbed blind by the government that they reside within, that they're controlled by. Yeah. So I would get out of there. I would get out of there if possible. And yeah, this is basically what I'm saying here. Is an unrealized gain tax is not feasible. People talk about it, but it won't happen. I believe it did happen to California, though. Am I making that up? Did that not happen, but it was supposed to happen or something like that? Sin Diesel, what's up? Specifically for like huge amounts, and then it really screwed over some startup founders because companies get valued a certain much, but then it goes to IPO and then becomes undervalued, but then they have to pay taxes on the overvalued price, something like that. So I don't know. I remember hearing a bunch of rich billionaires talk about it at one point, how disastrous either could be or has been. I can't remember exactly, but essentially, game theory, in my opinion, and if you read The Sovereign Individual, will end up creating more tax advantage for individuals and try to incentivize people to bring their wealth to those regions. So that is more likely where we're going to go. Of course, there's going to be the people that do the other side, but they're going to see that begins to push value out and it becomes unfeasible, as Orange Focus Media said. There will be a lot of boating accidents if they do an unrealized gain tax. Yeah, and that's ultimately one of the use cases of Bitcoin, right? Is that it is unconfiscatable if done properly. Doesn't mean that is what you should be doing immediately. Doesn't mean anything like that. But the fact that it can be a bearer asset uh, is uh, is very, very useful, especially when we're talking about stuff like this. Just to make sure I'm not misunderstood, I'm all down for this software. Yeah, no, I understand. I saw that. That was clear that you were down for it. I'm also down for it. I just think that I think that we need to have a lot more conversations about it too. And there's sort of a limited time because it gets activated regardless of um, miners being on board or not, right? There's that 55% threshold of mined blocks being mined, and then it gets activated early, but it's going to get activated no matter what. So we'll see. And then really, a soft fork can sort of just die if there's not enough not enough people running it, right? Like there might be some diehard people that continue to run it, but if there's no risk to the miners for not adopting it, right? That's one thing that's really interesting about miners' incentives is miners are completely subordinate to nodes. And if nodes want a restriction on the rule set and some miners participate in that, those miners now have an advantage to mine to the soft fork side. Um, because they risk basically mining on a stale chain if they're mining to the non soft fork side. So that naturally gives an advantage to people trying to push soft forks. But there have been soft forks that have been tried, and basically just don't reach takeoff, don't have enough people running it, and it doesn't make sense for the miners to move over to the soft fork implementation. So they don't. So we'll see if there's enough. I mean, there's a lot of people. How much hash rate mining on BIP 110? I don't even know. I'm not sure. I wonder actually. Don't have any information on this, but if somebody else has any information, that'd be cool to see if there's any blocks that have been mined with BIP 110 signaling in them. Yeah, forks are dangerous. Soft forks, I would say less so. Right? There's there's a restriction of rules, which means that everything is backwards compatible. Less likely there's going to be some sort of chain split or anything like that. It's still possible for chain splits to happen, which make it dangerous because it can be sort of, it's one step before, divide and conquer, right? I think, it's an interesting thing to talk about, but did Bitcoin Cash or Bcash and BSV and all the nonsense that happened there, did it make Bitcoin stronger or weaker? That should be a question that I don't have an answer for. I would have to think about that. I have to look at it. I would have to try to figure out some metrics that I can evaluate that on. But it definitely divided the ecosystem at the time. Sometimes, an individual, this may be a harsh way to put it, but if an individual has cancer and they cut that piece of cancer out of them and it's successful, they can become stronger from doing so. But they've divided themselves, right? They've removed something from themselves to become stronger. Craig Wright, obviously, terrible. Yeah, unbelievable, unbelievably terrible. So there can be cases where getting rid of something is really good. Actually, a lot of times, getting rid of things is very good. Sort of eliminating to find out what actually serves you is a pretty successful strategy to self improvement is one example, or just improvement in general. There can be too much of that. There can be a real divide where you're removing half the people, or half the hash rate, or half the economic value, half the influence. Um, that can be, that's up for debate, right? And obviously, it created a massive split at the time. Um, but these things were basically airdrops, right? This was a time where we got, you know, Bcash, we got airdropped to us because they kept the same historical chain and UTXO set, and they said, "Hey, this is trash, but somebody's willing to buy my trash for me or from me, so I'll sell it and buy more Bitcoin." And Bitcoin rallied like crazy afterwards, after all the consensus happened after the airdrop of these shit coins. So we'll see what happens this time, but yeah, I mean, when something's uncertain, there's always risk to it. So we'll see. Matt Kratt showed that about 4% nodes are running BIP 110. True. Yeah. And, a lot of those, I think I wonder if there's any people upgrading from core anything to a BIP 110 signaling client, or if it is just knots moving over to BIP 110. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Is leaving less than one Bitcoin on Fold app safe, or should I get a wallet? I'm a senior looking for easy options. Well, I don't know what you mean by, I mean, you could have 10 cents. 10 cents worth of Bitcoin is less than one Bitcoin. But, if you're talking about near one Bitcoin or half a Bitcoin or something like that, I would not be leaving it on an exchange app like that. Fold, I've heard some things about inability to move Bitcoin off of there, or massive delays before being able to do that. I don't have experience with Fold because it's not available in Canada. Um, I would look into getting a hardware wallet, something relatively easy to use, and begin the process of moving over to those. I don't recommend it often, but a very, very easy beginner wallet for somebody like you would be the bit key, and it has inheritance to it as well. It's relatively simple, secure. I don't love that it's seedless. I don't love that it's not operable with other Bitcoin wallets. But if my grandpa or my grandma all of a sudden said, "Hey, I know you like this Bitcoin thing. I want to get some Bitcoin. I don't want to hold it on an exchange or an ETF. I want to do it in self custody." Well, my dad's pretty old, and I got him into a real hardware wallet, but I might consider, getting them a bit key. That's one thing you could do. The other option would be to do, because air gapping is like sort of an extra step that is important, definitely important, and I would definitely want you to do. But again, it's sort of steps, baby steps. So I might do a Trezor before that, Bitcoin only firmware. Fairly easy to do, I would say, and gives you a real access to the BIP39 seed phrase, passphrase options. I got lots of videos on my YouTube channel to check that out. You can also join the school community, get extra help there. Link in the description for that, or you can book a one-on-one and we can talk a lot more about it, and specifically about your situation. Division is a property of something that's organic, for better or worse. Interesting take. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it is natural. Better or worse is still the question. The question I don't have answer to, but yeah. Would never not I would never I would not ever leave that much Bitcoin on exchange, but like Forrest said, make sure you know what you're doing before you lose it. Get help if you need to. I would leave more than point 0.1. Yeah, I mean, I usually say once you have $1,000 worth of Bitcoin, it's time to move it into self custody. It's time to begin learning self custody. Do you still believe Bitcoin, or do you believe Bitcoin still has the capacity of one day taking over the global financial system, even now that many of the financial industrial complex juggernauts own so much of it? I wouldn't be in Bitcoin if I don't believe this. I'm not into Bitcoin because number go up. Number go up is just the cherry on top. It's an added benefit of being an early adopter and of owning money that is that benefits from the technological deflation of the world. Bitcoin is going to be there's going to be continued pushes to get people into custodial Bitcoin arrangements because it benefits the custodians to have access to your capital, just as it does the passive income investments, just as BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard can all vote on your behalf if you own ETFs. It benefits them to have your assets. So that's there's Bitcoin is under so many attacks in so many different ways, and one of them is custodial centralization risk. So that is something you need to move away from, and self custody is the solution to that. Self custody in America, in North America, there will always be a right to do so. You can do so regardless of the right, but it's an escape valve for the financial elite. It's a completely separate monetary network that exists completely outside of the fiat system. The fiat system has to reach in there and try to create fiat wrappers of it. The ETF is a wrapped Bitcoin derivative product in the financial brokerage house type wrapper. And the Bitcoin itself, a UTXO, is outside of the reach of the fiat system in its natural, true sense. And that is incredibly useful to the financial elite to have that escape valve of value. So that will be kept alive, and that is Bitcoin. And you can save yourself while also hoping, or not hoping, but helping build the financial alternative network to be robust and useful beyond just an escape valve. Agree. Bitcoin, BitKey is a good starter wallet. What year did you get into Bitcoin? I bought Bitcoin in 2017. I kind of bought and sold. Some friends actually had a friend who was running like basically like a Bitcoin and ETH hedge fund kind of thing. It was like a trading algorithm. He told me a little bit about it. I got interested. I kind of understood it a little bit, but decided to sell all of it, unfortunately. to build my filmmaking business, which I still which I did for about 8 years. And I got back into Bitcoin, started researching it in 2020, 2021 more so, and then started had a small allocation then, and then sort of knew that we were going down, 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 and then started buying in 2022, 2023, learning the entire time from 2020 until today. And I become obsessive with topics. So I've gone incredibly deep um, over the past 5 years of becoming obsessed with this thing. That would be my exploration of it. Have you done any podcasts? Never heard your Bitcoin story. Yeah, I've done a few podcasts. Let me think. I've been on Rajat's podcast. I've uh, been on passive income investing with Adriano, his podcast. I've been on Sats Venture. I've been on WorkSafe Bitcoin. I've done a few things. I don't know. People's Bitcoin stories aren't really that interesting, in my opinion. Mine isn't really that interesting either. I basically was like, came into a little bit of money and then was like, how do I protect this money from inflation? And then started looking at, okay, scarce assets, real estate, gold, precious metals, stocks go up by inflation because they're affected by the money printer as well. Bitcoin. Bitcoin. I know about Bitcoin. I bought Bitcoin back in 2017. Let me look deeper into it. Oh, okay. So it's like gold, but it has a fixed supply. Oh, this difficulty adjustment thing is incredibly unique. There's more miners, but no more Bitcoin is released. So yeah, basically that's it, right? How do I protect myself against inflation? Bitcoin. Other than Bitkey, what are good starter wallets? Uh, Trezor. As I said, I would suggest Cold Card Q. Most people are going to think I'm insane for saying that, but every single thing you do on there is going to prompt you with all of the information of what you're doing. If you have the patience to read these things, to follow it step by step, by not pressing things, going forward with things, um, Bitcoin or Cold Card Q is the most comprehensive Bitcoin wallet. It doesn't try to hide anything from you, and therefore it is the best, in my opinion. That doesn't mean that it's easy to use, though. It's advanced and simple. So some people might think that's paradoxical. I think that makes sense. But that's what I would say. Um, I would go with the Bitkey first. I would move to a Trezor to start learning the BIP39, and then I would go to the Cold Card Q for long-term cold storage with at least a seed phrase, passphrase. Again, your beginner seed phrase, passphrase is probably going to be the way to go, and air gapped. All right, we're at an hour 3 here, guys. I got to go in a couple minutes. I'm just going to bring up Bitcoin well one more time. I'll answer your last couple questions. I really appreciate all the comments, questions in the chat. It's awesome. It's really great stuff, guys. A lot of fun conversations today. Let's see. I'm about to switch to Linux and host my own offline large language models. Any thoughts? Great. Cool, man. Yeah, I have a couple Linux devices actually. Oh, I mean, technically, my Umbrel, my Start9 are both Linux too. But I downloaded Zorin OS on my little mini PC. It's awesome. It's so cool. I'm still trying to figure out how to connect to it from this device using like MDNS or remote viewer, remote access or something. Still trying to figure that out. Offline large language model. Hard to do without some serious GPU power. Don't know what kind of model you hope to run there, but that's a dream of mine too. But I just don't have the capital to do it right now, or the capital that I want to invest in doing it. But it would be sick to run like Kimi K2, like the open source Chinese models that are supposed to be really, really efficient. And then you don't have to pay for your prompts and for your, have the token allotment for something like OpenClaw. That would just be so cool. So cool. Chasing pure number go up may have been the Achilles heel of this cycle. More peaceful revolution vibes needed going forward. That's always the case. It's always the case. People chase number go up. The retail frenzy has been in the treasury companies this time. They've absorbed some of the upside, they've absorbed some of the downside. Potentially, that's going to mute this bear market if that's what we're in. That has been my thesis as well. Is we'll see a muted bear market, if any, because we did not see the blow off top. But we did see the blow off top, say in strategy and things like that, and the collapse downwards. So that could be where that could be the shock absorber. That could be the absorber of downward pressure potentially. How did Bitcoin change me? Watch my first couple of videos. The whole podcast or this channel was originally, the idea was, okay, there's lots of Bitcoin content out there. There's lots of great stuff, but I want to talk about the philosophical side or the spiritual side or the self-development side of Bitcoin and how it actually changed me, because it changed me a lot. The main underlying thing is that it gave me a longer term time horizon preference and hope for the future, where I was a little bit black pilled or nihilistic beforehand. So it gave me hope. If you, yeah, I mean, I got hundreds of videos, but I have a video even talking about how Bitcoin led me to feel willing to have a child. Having a child is sort of an expression of hope for the future. You're not going to choose to have a kid if you don't believe that the future is bright for that child. And I think Bitcoin is a huge inspiration for that. So I've made videos about it in the past, but that's just to quickly sum it up at the last minute here. All right, so let's do the wishing well. I know you guys love some free sats here. Again, this is a competitive scene for these coins. So if you want to win some sats, you can get out your Lightning wallet right now and scan the QR code that's about to pop up on screen. Somebody last week won 21,000 Satoshis. We've already had a few hundred released today. We're going to do one more after this. Only the first person that scans this with their Lightning wallet gets to redeem these 210 sats. So if you don't want to compete and you want to win some sats, you can just use my link in the description to sign up for Bitcoin Well. I believe you get 5 tosses into the Bitcoin wishing well. You get 2,500 points, I believe. And you don't have to compete for it. You'll get whatever sats you get. So let's do one more here. And wow, that's ambitious. 3,000 shares of MSTR. Wow. I would learn to sell covered calls on that. You could retire, man. You can, I've made decent cash from selling covered calls on MSTR, which has been very, very helpful with the added expenses in my life. Calyx is transitioning to Linux crypto laptops. Thoughts? I don't know what that means. I don't know what Calyx is. And I don't know what a crypto laptop is either, really. All right. 210 sats sent to your Lightning. Oh, that's cool. When it's scanned, it shows that it's been scanned. I'm going to do that one more time. Third time's the charm, everybody. Last time I did a third one at the end, somebody requested it, and it was 210,000 sats. It was crazy. And that's a 1 in 600 chance. So if you know anything about RNG, you know anything about gambling, which is what this is, you could be lucky. Could be lucky. But you're not. It's 210 sats. First person to scan that. I'm going to wait until that rocket ship goes up. You know, that the old BlockFi rocket to the moon kind of rocket ship, if you guys know the reference. Oh, look at that. Awesome. Cool. Thanks everybody for tuning in, asking all the questions. Appreciate everything. Again, the school community, 7-day free trial. You can join. You can get lifetime access. The only way to get lifetime access is by booking an hour call with me through my website, pathtobitcoin.xyz. And we can talk about whatever you need. And you get free lifetime access to the school. That only goes for the first 100 members. I think we have 30 something members in there right now. So the spots are running out. And then it's monthly or yearly beyond that. So appreciate everybody that has signed up. Awesome conversations going on in there. Some absolutely beautiful Bitcoiners and some courses. I got a couple master classes that are only exclusively there. And appreciate everybody who's joined. Appreciate everybody in the call. Thank you all. And we'll see you on the next one.